Good morning, Zoom and Facebook. My name is Joshua Cash, and I'm from the Birmingham campus. I want to say welcome to Faith Chapel students. We are so excited to have you here today. In Zoom, please stay to the end for small groups. But before we go any further, let us pray. Dear God, thank you for waking us up this morning. Thank you for sending your son, Jesus, to die on the cross for us. Thank you for your amazing love, grace, and mercy, Lord, and for this amazing gathering that you have given us today. In Jesus' name, amen.
Hey, good morning, everybody. We're so excited that you have decided to join us this morning. We want to welcome you to the first quarter family ministry forum. And we have an amazing guest with us today. But without any further ado, I just want to say thank you to Minister Karen Malone, our Senior Director of Family Ministry, our pastors, Mike Moore and Kanitha Moore, and the whole entire Faith Chapel family. We just want to say thank you so very much for joining us to our family forum. And without any further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Miss Julene, who will introduce our guest. So you can take it away, Miss Julene.
All right, thank you, Minister Alondio, and welcome to our parents, our teens, and our kids. Welcome to our family forum, Becoming a Good Digital Parent. And today's event is going to be co-hosted by Bark, and we're so excited to welcome Renee Abrams. Renee Abrams is the school safety manager for Bark. She's from Atlanta, Georgia. She helps schools identify digital safety concerns, and she also speaks to parents, helping them better understand all things kids and tech. Coming into tech as a former classroom teacher, she has a unique perspective on the challenges schools and families must overcome to keep kids and teens safer online. So we just really are excited to have her here. I do want to give a few housekeeping tips before we bring her in. Parents, we actually have resources that will be available from today's presentation. It will be online on our Facebook and our website sometime this week. So please be looking for those resources. Also, questions will be taken toward the end of the presentation. So any questions that you have, we just ask that you save those toward the end of the presentation if you can. We also have some great giveaways. I don't want to spoil them, but they're awesome. If you would like to be put in a drawing for those giveaways, please send your name, your email address, and phone number to my email address that I will put in the chat. So if you want to kind of get your chance to get those giveaways, I'll put my email address in and you'll just send that information to my email address. All right, and now I would like to just turn it over to Miss Renee Abrams.
Thank you so much. And thank you all for having me. When Julie and I were talking about the outline for today, I loved the idea that I know there's a combination of parents and students here. Typically, I get two separate crowds. So I will try to address you both. But again, thank you so much for having me. I love that you all are dedicating so much time and attention to some very real issues that are happening. As Julie mentioned, one of the things I do is I talk to schools and I talk to parents, and I talk to them about sort of just what's really happening in these digital spaces for our youth, whether that's from a data standpoint or whether that's just anecdotally from all of the other schools and parents and kids that we have communication with. Well, anyway, what I was saying is I feel like I spend a lot of time convincing not kids, because they're in this, they understand what's going on, but schools and parents that there actually is a problem. And so one of the things I want to do today is just talk about just some of the very real issues that parents and kids are facing. And I'd also like to talk about our findings from a data standpoint, and also how are other parents and schools and kids navigating these very sort of common obstacles. A little bit about Bark, our company, what we do, and sort of how we have this information. We were started by parents just like you who were looking for a way to just keep their own kids safer online. What we realized very quickly was the answers to a lot of these technical issues, it's not more tech, it's relational. So that is why a lot of the things we're going to talk about sort of blend the two. So enough of me talking at you. Let me share my screen with you for a moment. The first thing we're going to look at is just data that we've compiled at Bark. This is across 2 billion plus messages from apps and social media platforms and other things that we monitor. So every year we compile this report. Again, this is specifically just for parents to give you a glimpse at what it's like growing up sort of on the internet today. So I won't go through each of these step by step. I will go ahead and provide this link so you all can take a look at it later. But just to scroll through it. So one of the major issues I know a lot of us are familiar with online is bullying. And this is so much different than the bullying that you may be thinking of. You know, there's no ignore it. There's no, just, remove yourself from this platform. So we have a lot of information on what that is, what to look for, but let's just look at the numbers for right now. More than 76% of tweens and 82% of teens have experienced bullying as a bully, victim, or witness. With mental health, I know there's no surprise to any of us that, more than 45% of tweens and more than 66% of teens have engaged in conversations about depression. Now, these are numbers that we just can't, we can't deny. We can't deny that hospital-related mental health visits have had a significant increase, especially over the last year. And again, just our data tells us, based on student communication, both at school, on school accounts, and in public digital spaces, that these are just common conversations. I think when we think about violence, we might immediately go to the worst case scenario. And that's not really that's not the typical violence that we're experiencing online, right? We're experiencing this in gaming platforms, or really just in the way that, well, yes, in a lot of different areas, we're experiencing violence. More than 88% of tweens and more than 94% of teens expressed or, again, experienced violent subject matter or thoughts. And another one, drugs and alcohol. And like I said, I won't go through them all, but I just want to look at the numbers again so we can see that the data is just very real. So more than 78% of tweens and 91% of teens engaged in conversations around drugs and alcohol. I think it's important to remember too that we include vaping in this, with the legalization and decriminalization of marijuana, maybe not in your state, but in surrounding states, it's just made it more accessible. There are a lot of reasons that these numbers are higher than we, might think. That's usually a surprising number. Self-harm and suicide, more than 41% of tweens and 66% of teens. And this goes back to the mental health crises I was speaking of before, but also, there is a prevalence in self-harm, and these are two separate things almost, right? So I think that's another thing that's surprising to parents. And again, maybe not for your children, just in general, that these are the types of things that kids in general are dealing with right now, the prevalence of cutting and even, burning themselves. Sexual content, more than 70% of tweens and 87% of teens have encountered nudity or content of a sexual nature. That's probably not a surprising number either. There are studies that are done on both sides every year, whether it's done by the adult entertainment industry, whether it's done by sort of a watchdog industry, but it measures the percentage of pornographic material on the website, and that number, or on the web, I should say, and that number is always somewhere between 35 and 40%. Between 35 and 40% of all information on the internet by various accounts is pornographic. So this number, nor that number, should be surprising. So again, this is something I'll link to, and this is just sort of I know I'm throwing a lot of the the doom and gloom at you, but this is, you know, these are the numbers. This is what's happening. So just to scroll through, these are top apps and platforms for concerning content. The very first question I always get from parents is, you know, which apps are safe? What should we be doing? I'm just going to scroll through this just so you can see that there are some repeat offenders, right? So the top 5 apps and platforms for sexual content: suicidal ideation, depression, body image concerns. Again, you've probably started to see some repeat offenders. Some of these might surprise you. Some of them probably don't. I'll say one that seems to be surprising as I talk to more parent groups across the country is that Spotify continuously made this list in every category. And it's just another example of seemingly safe or benign places that do have some level of inappropriateness or danger, and that do require a higher level of vigilance. Whatever you can think of in either of these categories that's a searchable thing, I guarantee you, if you were to, you can find it on Spotify, up until the worst extreme of whatever you're thinking of. So again, just a glimpse into what's really going on the web. So again, the point of this research is really just to give parents some insight into what it's like to grow up on the internet today, and kind of the frequency also at which our kids are encountering these issues. So given the amount of time they spend online, it's really not a matter of if they're going to face these issues, but a matter of when. And again, our learnings don't just come from our data. It's a deep dive into safety and security and vigilance and exploitation. And we partnered with youth psychologists and law enforcement, all of these people. Okay, so across the board with all of these organizations and groups that I just named, there are a few consistent blockers to parents and kids being able to come together before there's an issue. And these are the same blockers that exist on the other side of an issue. And so I want to spend some time just talking about these two sort of syndromes for the different groups. There's the not my kid syndrome for parents, and then there's the in over my head syndrome for kids. And yes, I'll just talk to you for a moment. So, you know, I'm a millennial. I'm a vintage millennial, meaning I'm like, you know, just a few years away from being Gen X, right? But as I give these talks across the country, I'm always surprised at how uninformed parents my age or even younger are when it comes to digital spaces for kids. So I say that to say, before I get into sort of you know, beating up on the parents for a moment about the not my kid syndrome, if you're Gen X or you're, you know, Gen Y like me, just know that it's important for us to just keep learning, navigating these digital spaces. This isn't something you're just going to pick up along the way. You've probably picked up a lot of tech for sure, you know, over the last 20 years, but these specifics are just going to require some additional learning. So not my kid syndrome for the parents. We certainly want to believe our kids are all making good choices. And the fact is, you know, they are kids. They're going to make errors in judgment. And so I know we all know the importance of paying attention to what they're doing in real life, right? We're teaching safe and appropriate and responsible behavior. We're modeling, we're mentoring, we're doing this in every area. It's just important to make sure that those lessons also extend specifically to the online world. So a few reasons to break free of this not my child syndrome. The first thing is it encourages judgment and it closes communication. So again, from all of the kids and the parents that we talk to across the nation, we talk about blockers when it came for the kids talking to their parents or vice versa. The not my kid syndrome, you know, says that, you know, my kid's certainly not doing this, and it has an attitude of judgment. So it's hard for your kids to come to you when they actually have started to do that, or when they have fallen into a situation. It's also harder for your peers, right? Your own friends to talk to you and maybe get advice about what their kids might be going through, which leads to just a lot of shame around parenting, right? The other thing about the not my kid syndrome is it shifts the focus to me as a parent, right? I know that my children's actions certainly reflect somewhat on me, but when I insist that, well, because of my expert parenting, my kid would never do this, it puts the focus on me opposed to what my child is really going through and how I can help them. It also makes gray issues black and white. So many times it's not as simple as, and fill in whatever it is, okay? Maybe it is one of those long things on that list, but it's not as simple as my kid's not doing it or my kid is doing it. It could be, a kid might not be vaping, but they may be surrounded by kids who are. They might not be viewing, this explicit material on the internet, but they might be following overtly sexual people or accounts. So true, they're not doing whatever it is, but there's still so many things around the issue. And so the not my kid attitude makes us blind to the other gray issues around the big one. So I know it's really scary to think about our kids doing things that are dangerous or inappropriate, especially out here in the wild, wild west of, online world. But, what we've learned is that open lines of communication, talking to them about it, and, trying not to feel like a bad parent when they get into these situations. That's extremely important to this work. And I want to talk about what not my kid looks like online. So back to the numbers a little bit. I'm going to share, let me see my notes. I'm going to share some information from Common Sense Media, which is an awesome resource. I'll actually show them to you in a moment. But again, what not my kid looks like online. 40% of kids self-reported that they've posted something that they later regretted. 38% self-reported that they've used sites to make fun of other students. 32% have created a profile with a false identity. 27% have hacked into someone else's social networking account. And 13% have posted nude or semi-nude photos, pictures of themselves or others online. And this is from a survey of, again, children self-reporting between 6th grade and 10th grade, and it's over 100,000 students. So just to give you an idea of what not my kid looks like online, and it probably isn't your kid, right? But this is just the world that they're living in and just the prevalence of it. So like I said, not my kid syndrome, this is the one for parents. Now, for kids, what we see a lot of, and again, this is from the youth advisors we speak to, from the parents and the kids that share their stories with us, and also from our data, we see that there's this in over my head syndrome for kids. And remember, I call it a syndrome just because of the prevalence. And what does it mean to be in over my head? All of us adults, if we just take a moment and think of a time when you were a tween or a teen and you found yourself in over your head. And maybe it was a situation where you could go to your parents, but there were many situations I'm sure you can immediately think of. And maybe they were big, maybe they were small, but because you'd already done a few things wrong, when you got in over your head, it was difficult to say, hey, mom, hey, dad, I need help. I don't know what I'm doing here. So, excuse me. So in over my head syndrome, this is something that we can correct as parents and kids just as by talking to each other. A lot of us care a lot about what our parents think. We don't want to disappoint them. So if I know that my parents value how independent and smart and vigilant I am, it's more difficult for me to go to them and say, hey, there's a situation where I was none of those things. Also, kids tell us they don't know what the consequences are. They tell us that, again, I've done a few things inappropriate and a few things wrong, but now I'm in a situation that's real wrong by anyone's standards, right? They don't know what the consequences are because they've never had these conversations with their parents before. They don't even know where to start. And without knowing what the consequences are, well, they imagine the worst. I'm going to be grounded forever. I won't have any technology, whatever the case is. So these are just a few key points. Again, I wanted to share from what kids tell us they wish their parents knew. There's actually and again, I'm dropping a lot of links at the end of this, but these are just a few things that kids, middle school and high school students, say things that they wish their parents knew about their online use. One of these is when you take away a device at night, you might not realize how many devices we still have with us. And I'm just skimming through these. Talk with us about sexting and healthy relationships in a way that isn't awkward. This is a fun list of things, but this is repeatedly what we hear from kids across the country. So both in over my head syndrome for kids and the not my kid syndrome for parents, they have the same cure. That cure is just education and communication. Now, certainly I'm going to talk to you about some tech stuff too, but I want to get right into the education part of that. Again, the number one question I usually get is what apps are safe? And there are certainly some you should just say no to. If there's location-based chatting, disappearing messages or photos, these are just examples. There's other things that are going to come up where you're going to have to make the call that's best for your family on a number of levels. So instead of giving you a definitive list of which apps are horrible and exactly what you should do when you get back home, I'd like to just point you to a few resources, and I am going to share my screen again. The first resource is going to be Protect Young Eyes. They just do such an excellent job of keeping everyone, including us at BARC, where they keep all of us really up to date on exactly what's going on in digital spaces. They have a lot of training. I know a lot of parents feel like it's just so much to learn. I'm already so far behind the curve. How do I get to where I need to get so I can even have conversations with my kids? So this is all directed at parents for resources right now. And again, Protect Young Eyes is a great place to go to find out more about apps, to find out more about gaming platforms, anything it is that you have a question about. The other thing that I would recommend to you is a partner of ours at Common Sense Media. And this is great as well. I have a lot of, actually, Julene and I were talking about Discord earlier. And I know some parents ask sometimes, they're like, well, what's Discord? What's Roblox? Well, these are things that it's important to know. Remember that extra step we have to take because Roblox, for instance, has 90 million users. So there's probably a likelihood that even if you don't know about it, your kids do. So back to Common Sense Media. This is a place where I just typed in Discord and I get the Parents Ultimate Guide to Discord. It tells me what it is. And, I'll go ahead and select this for a moment because this is another thing I really like about Common Sense Media. Of course, it's going to give me some information, but right over here to the right where it says what parents say and what kids say, you can read reviews due to their extensive research. They're always polling, they're always gathering information, and you can really see, well, what are kids saying about this? What are parents saying the real dangers are? This is a great way to, again, educate yourself in a way that you can start conversation. The other thing that I wanted to make sure I talked about on this call was Childhood 2.0. Now, this is a documentary that was put together, and I know documentaries, so some of you are like, yes, some of you eye roll, right? But I promise this documentary was put together with not just, experts in the space talking to you. It's also parents and kids and, teachers. It's a variety of people. It was put together as something that parents and kids would be able to sit down and watch together. Now, I will also say though, I would encourage you as a parent to watch the film yourself first, just to determine if it's something that you do feel like is acceptable to watch as a family. But it was created, with some yes, with a little bit of discretion. It was created so that tweens, teens, and parents could sit down and watch this. The feedback we've gotten has just been across the board phenomenal. We posted it for free first, and I think it has more than 2 million views so far. You can watch it on Amazon Prime for free again. But the whole point of Childhood 2.0 is what's happening, whether it's cyberbullying, online predators, suicidal ideation. What are their friends talking about? And what we produce for this as well is a handbook. And this is not a, okay, flip to page 7 and like now you know everything about, sexual content. The whole point of this, handbook was conversation starters. So it might be a little, at the beginning, you might think, oh, I don't know if, I want to have these conversations, or maybe these conversations seem a little like corny or whatever the case is. Really read through this. This has been put together again by youth psychologists, by experts in safety and mental health, and also by our youth advisors. So I encourage you, again, after you've watched the family, determined whether or not this is something for your family, I encourage you to jump in and really pull out some of these conversation starters and start having conversations with your kids about not, what if this happens, but when this happens to someone in your life. It doesn't have to be them, right? But when this happens, when you encounter this, whether it's online, whether it's with a friend, whether it's in your own life, what do you do? So that's, again, just 2 things that I wanted to make sure I shared with you on the lines of resources: Protect Young Eyes, the Childhood 2.0 documentary, and then also Common Sense Media. Those are great places to go. One of the things I did want to spend some time talking about, and I want to make sure I'm leaving enough time for questions. So if I'm talking a mile a minute, that's why. I want to throw out the good information at you, but also leave a little bit of time to answer your questions. So that said, I do want to spend a little time talking about one specific app. I want to talk about TikTok for a moment, because this is another place. Sorry, my laptop's dying. This is another place where a lot of times we'll find parents are just not aware of some of the dangers that go on there. So I'd like to just talk about 3 specific ways predators interact with kids on TikTok. One of them is flattery. And that's self-explanatory, right? So TikTok is a platform that encourages performance. So certainly, likes or shares or all of that is a great thing. It usually starts off very innocent. And again, now I've done something that's a little bit inappropriate, maybe by communicating with a stranger. Maybe they've asked me to, yes, grooming. Maybe they've asked me to they've done a duet video with me. And if you don't know what that is, please Google it. But maybe they've done a duet with me, video with me, and they're like, hey, I'll send you fill in the blank, Robux, Venmo, whatever it is, like, I'll do this for you if you'll make a video for me of you singing, any song. Very innocent, but still kind of inappropriate, right? So now they've gotten your child to do 2 or 3 inappropriate things, and now they ask them for whatever the big thing is, right? Yes, or they lie. So that's sort of where, remember, those open lines of communication keep your child from make them more apt to have a conversation with you when they're in over their head. And also knowing that you're not a not my kid parent makes it easier for them to have those conversations too. Let's see, sorry, I'm also trying to keep an eye on the comments. Okay, so another way that predators interact with kids on TikTok is they curate their For You page. And, TikTok has an algorithm just like Facebook or Instagram or, a lot of them that we use, where it's going to show you content that you're most likely to interact with, right? Things that you've already shown you're very interested in. So my TikTok, for instance, just has dances and like cute kids doing cute baby stuff, right? But you could also curate it in a way where maybe it's just photos of young girls dancing. Maybe it's just, fill in the blank of whatever it is. So there are some ways to just make sure that if your child is using TikTok, regardless of their age, talk to them about these things so that when they encounter them, it's not a surprise. And also, there are some things you can put in the very beginning of it instead of just saying, oh no, absolutely not, no one's going to use this or be on this app. Look at some of the parental controls that are around. They're actually getting better and better all the time. Organizations like Bark and Protect Young Eyes and Common Sense Media, we do a lot more than run websites and things like this. It's through petitioning and developing new laws and all of this that you've seen YouTube and Facebook and Instagram and even Snapchat to some degree. They get stronger with their parental controls. So let me bring it back bring it back for a moment. So TikTok and all of these other apps, right? Maybe you want to learn more about it. You want to learn how to put parental controls either on devices or on applications. We do have something in place that's free that you can go check out, and it's the Bark-O-Matic. And I'll just put it up on the screen for a moment. But the Bark-O-Matic, again, this is for parents so that you can get a better understanding of, instead of, again, just blanketing and saying, nope, get a better understanding of if there are things in place that can make it as safe as possible. So this will be a great place to, if your child has a particular gaming platform or an app or, even a device that they've expressed interest in, and your reasoning for saying no is because you're just not sure how to make it safe, this is an excellent place to come. So you can get a definitive answer. Is this safe or not? The great thing about Bark-O-Matic, again, it's free. You just put in what does your child use, whether it is devices, apps, again, gaming consoles. They'll ask you for your internet service provider. There are a lot of things in place at the core level of these apps and accounts that we just find so many parents aren't aware of. They're already in place, so you can just keep kids safer and kind of block some of the content that we've talked about that we don't want them coming in contact with. So again, Bark-O-Matic, this is another link that'll be in the resources, and it'll print out custom results for you. So if you're using Comcast and you have, Verizon and, there's 3 different types of iPhone, whatever the case is, it will print out a plan just for your devices, just for your home, just for your apps, and give you some tips and tricks along the way. This is the most common form of misuse on YouTube, or this is the most common way that predators interact with your child on TikTok. So again, I wanted to just make sure I left you with this as a resource as well, because there are a lot of things that we are going to say no, absolutely no to, but it's important to have the reasoning behind it, right? There are a lot of ways to make these digital spaces a lot safer for our kids that don't necessarily cost money either. Now, before we get into, keep me honest on the time, please, Julie. Before we get into the questions, I wanted to go over 2 specific things in these last few minutes. So I want to make sure I talk about monitoring, right? So Bark is an account monitoring company. And what I'd like to do is talk to both, the parents and the kids here when I talk about account monitoring. So, well, let's just start with this. Problems are generally pretty easy to spot. I know a lot of times we find that kids will think they're hiding things that parents can easily discover, again, if we're taking that extra step, which we should be. when we don't show we're taking extra steps to be engaged and informed in specifically their digital lives, not only have we created barriers to communication, but someone mentioned grooming earlier. This is also a pivotal point. Stop sharing. This is also a pivotal point in that grooming process. If you're interested, certainly go online and Google, the 6 stages of grooming. But I'll talk about the first 3. The first 3, it's relationship building, and then it's trust building. And then there's this third step, which is very important. And this is risk assessment. This is where I, as a predator, be that a peer or, your vision of like a creepy person in the basement, whatever the case is, predatory behavior is what I'm talking about. So I'm a person who's a predator in that definition. And I'm starting to assess, well, how involved are the parents in your life online and also in real life? What predators who have been apprehended, upon being interviewed by authorities, one of the questions that was asked in a study was, what will make you, what is a deterrent for you? What will make you just pump your brakes and move on to the next, victim? And time again, it was this stage at risk assessment when they ask, it's so annoying. Like, my parents are always putting parental controls on my, devices. What about yours? Do your parents do that too? Or if they're not even pretending to be a kid, they're an adult, right? And they're saying, I really want to meet up with you. I'd like to talk. I'd like to make sure we have privacy though. Like, is this just your laptop? Does anyone else use it? Are you able to erase your history? And they might not ask these questions flat out, right? Because remember, our kids are smart and they're not going to fall for tricks so easily. But professional predators, this is why they're successful, right? So again, I just really want to drive home the importance of monitoring in both a technical aspect, but also just remember that just how we monitor and mentor in real life, we have to monitor and mentor in the digital world as well. And so to do that fully, we kind of have to have some digital tools. So one of the things that, I'll leave you with is at Bark, we provide account monitoring. It's software. You can check it out online at bark.us. I'll send you that link as well. But our message really is, I certainly use Bark. I hope you do. We think it's the best out there, but you have to find digital tools to monitor in a digital way, whether that's Bark or some other company. The reason we created Bark is because we had to figure out how to do this. How do we get it? How do we, put a safety belt on our kids while they're driving around the internet, right? But how do we also do that in a way that respects their privacy? So our solution was to create a product that wasn't spyware. With Bark, you're going to have to sit down and talk to your kids about what apps they're using. You're going to have to sit down and talk about their devices, while you're monitoring, and we give you some help for doing that. But also, you're not going to have access. As a parent, I don't have access to every single thing my child has done on the internet, but I am going to get an alert if maybe someone sends you an inappropriate photo. I am going to get an alert if, you selected a link that you shouldn't have been viewing. And this is things that we hear from parents and kids, is that this helps to have that conversation. Remember, there's a high likelihood that our kids are going to be in these situations. It's much easier as a parent for me to get an alert and go to my child and talk about this alert, as opposed to, over dinner, like, hey, so been cyberbullied lately? It's just a different process. So again, we hope you use Bark, but use common sense media, protect young eyes, and just find a solution that works for your family. Because what we've learned is that, like, taking our kids' phones and going through the messages. That's not something either of you want, right? And then also saying no to all applications and no to all gaming services. That's not, an effective solution either. So again, just find the solution that works best for your family. The last thing I wanted to leave you with is a tech contract. Earlier, I was talking about a big blocker that kids have told us to going to their parents about some of these tough issues is the consequence. What's going to happen now that I've told them this? And it might seem small, but the fear of you just taking away all things tech, it's a big fear. And it will actually keep kids from coming to you about things bigger than you have imagined, big or small. So we suggest a tech contract. And one of the things that we've learned during quarantine, when screen time and school time and these things were changing every week, right? One of the things that parents started to tell us they were doing was to do this tech contract almost weekly or every other week. And what it inspired was conversation, right? Every Friday evening, we're gonna have to sit down and talk about fill in the blank. What apps did you download on your phone this week? Tell me about, tell me about that. What should our rules be about the phone at night? Should we leave all our phones in the kitchen? Are your kids allowed to have their technology in their room at night? Are there data restrictions? There are just a lot of things that it's helpful to put in writing. And again, this isn't parenting advice. This is just anecdotal advice from parents navigating this tech world just like you. And the biggest one that we get is to make it very clear that if a child does come to you with these issues, with something that happened in a digital space, that they know that there's going to be a conversation around what happens to the phone. It's not an automatic, some parents have even gone as far as to say, if you come to me with these things, I will not take your phone. I'm not telling you to do that. I'm just saying, but these are the types of things that we've gotten. It's helpful. I don't know if the kids on this line, agree with that, but, just to know what's going to happen on the other side of this has been a really important thing that kids and parents have shared with us. So, okay, I ran through a lot of information on this call. I'm definitely going to be sure to send links, and I'm happy to talk with you all again in the future if any specific things have come out of this call. But we are in the last 10 minutes, so I just wanted to make sure I leave room for everyone's questions.
Yes. So at this time, thank you so much, Miss Renee. That was awesome information. Awesome.
Thank you.
For parents and teens and kids. So at this time, we want to definitely allow opportunity for you to ask questions, whether you're a parent, whether you're a teen, whether you're a kid. If you have any questions for Miss Renee, we want to ask them now. So I will just turn it over to you all to feel free to ask any questions.
And if you could type them in the chat, that would be great. We're looking at the chat now to see if there are any questions that you may have for Miss Renee.
And I'm reading through some of the conversation that was happening while I was talking. I love the parental control conversation, like, oh, it was the worst. And I think that, there has been, even honestly, week by week, that's another reason the Barcomatic's a good tool. Literally week over week, they change. So what you might think was the truth last month with, just name an application, it's probably been upgraded or changed within the last 30 days. So that's why a tool like Barcomatic helps. But yeah, they are getting better and better.
Well, Ms. Renee, we do have some questions that have come in. Thank you, guys. I have a question Do you have more examples of what kids say they wished their parents did or said about tech?
Oh yeah, I do for sure. I know one of them, well, yeah, that we didn't get into is many of us have a fake Instagram account. That was one that came up time and time again. And again, for some of us, it's like, oh, well, again, not my kid, or why would you ever do that? A lot of times, the Finsta account is something that kids have, whether they are banned from Instagram or whether their parents already know they have Instagram. It's just that desire to have intense privacy. But typically, a Finsta account exists, for things that would be considered inappropriate in your household. So that's another thing where obviously conversations, right, help to make sure that that's not occurring. But as far as technically, the only way you could ensure that, apps or accounts aren't being created that you don't know about would be to have a technical monitoring tool that alerted you to that.
Okay. I have another question. What about, because we know that cyberbullying and social media drama is very big. And what about if someone spreads rumors or leaks someone's information? What advice would you give to that team?
Mhm. And that's something that happens often, whether it's through sextortion, whether it's through, which is, if you're not aware, which is, uh, maybe they've already gotten you to do a few inappropriate things, or maybe they haven't and they'll just lie and say that they did. But whatever the threat is, whether it's to tell your parents or show your parents or tell your best friend or to put it online, that threat is used to get, nude or other inappropriate photos from you. So yeah, so sextortion, or whether it's through just plain old like bullying, acting like you're a person that you're not. There are a few things here. I mean, and we do, by the way, have specific guidelines for what to do if this happens to you in our Childhood 2.0 handbook. So, feel free to check that out too. But off the top, it depends on the situation where it happened. Is this a purely digital space or public digital space, where you need to report it, or where you need to possibly even, reach out to any local authorities? That's some guidance that we have in that booklet as well. Did it happen in school? If it happened in school, thankfully, your school or district has something in place for this, and they can also guide you into what to do outside of it. Our recommendation would be to make sure that, and this is also a place where sometimes that shame comes in, right? You don't want to go to the school and say, well, my kid was involved in this, or they're doing this. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that the counselors don't do anything. Typically, the school has a district policy that they have to follow. So if they're not following that, yeah, that's a bigger conversation. Wow, I love how engaged you all are about, not feeling safe about talking to your counselors and them not doing anything. Are there any trusted adults in your school that that you would feel safe talking to, or is it just your counselors? Yeah. Yeah, there are. Mhm.
I do have some other questions too,
Okay.
that are coming in. Um, I have someone who was surprised that YouTube was not an offender. What are your thoughts about that? It appears that most issues occur with apps that require accounts, but what about YouTube?
That's a really, really good. That's a great question. YouTube is certainly an offender. We didn't include it as an app or a platform, but as a website, yes, YouTube is a here's why YouTube is the greatest danger zone, right? Because YouTube has an algorithm just like the rest of us, right? So especially if you're signed into Google, based on your web traffic, your activity, your searches, I can pretty much tell how old you are, and based on other patterns, I can tell what you might be into. So I'm an innocent 9-year-old kid. I'm like, I don't know, looking at Minecraft players on YouTube, but based on the knowledge that 9-year-olds might also click on this, they might get things that are obscene or inappropriate that they've never seen and would have never ever searched for. But now that one click has also fed into that algo. And so YouTube is dangerous in that, in exposing us to things that we would have never even searched for, big and small. And also, YouTube is a place where I think parents are more prone to think it's safe. And just keep in mind that we're not predators. And when I say predator, I mean just predatory behavior. Typically, we're not predators, so we're unable to think like a predator does, right? So any platform or website where someone could contact you, without your consent, not a stranger, but where somebody can contact you without your consent, is a place for danger. So anyway, to go back to YouTube, there is a parent's guide to YouTube. YouTube also has some pretty good parental controls. I would not have said that. Yes, there's YouTube for kids also. And there's some things to look at there, because remember, we're not predators, but think about now how I as a predator might infiltrate that as well. So there are parental controls all across, whether it's YouTube Kids, that are so much better today as we speak than they even were this same time last year. So I used to nanny for a girl who was a slime queen. She made slime all day, every day, even sold it. And we had a YouTube channel, and this was many years ago, but the prevalence at which she was contacted before we, figured these things out, was very, very high. So so YouTube and any other place, go to Protect Young Eyes, or go to the Bark blog, and they'll give you a parent's guide to how to keep your kids safer on there.
And I know most of our kids have been online for, a long time with school and with online classes. How would a teen stay mentally healthy while being online?
Well, that's a really, really good question. I will say that the American Academy of Pediatric, I'll send you that link also, Jillian, but they did a study on this a few months ago, maybe about 5 or 6 months ago, and they have some specific steps. One of the things I always remember was that 90-minute rule, right? Whether it's with school or whether it's with gaming, every 90 minutes you need to take a break. Your brain, your eyes, your body. It was a study they did to try to talk about the addiction of tech, just being on screens all the time. And in the adolescent brain, again, I'm not the doctor, I'm just trying to remember what it said though, but in the adolescent brain, without taking those 90-minute breaks, it's the same as, an addict who just continues to consume until they basically have overdosed. So anyway, the 90-minute break is something that came up a lot, but also being flexible with the screen time, because things change week to week, month to month. So the rules that you had last week might not be the same this week. So even if you're a kid and you're like, okay, for instance, I somehow spent 17% more time on my iPhone this week. I'm not sure how, but the data doesn't lie. So, whether you're a parent or a teen and you start to see signs like that, give yourself some grace, but also look at why, some of those things are occurring, and put new things in place, whether that's every month or every week.
Minister Londia, do you have any questions from Facebook Live? Do you have any questions?
I don't, Miss Shalane.
Okay, that's fine. I do have one question from a parent. What can you do if your tween or teen has already kind of been exposed to a lot of the platforms that you talked about earlier in a negative way? What should that parent do?
That's an excellent question. And also, we actually just wrote a blog a few weeks ago. It's never too late, right? So, whether it's Instagram or TikTok or Snapchat, Twitter, a lot of those common offenders, I would encourage you as a family. I think this makes it an easier thing, right? As a family to go to Bark-O-Matic and look at what it suggests to make all of those apps and all of those sites and all of those places that they are comfortable in, what it suggests to make them safe. And you can have a conversation about, well, why these things do or don't work with their usage. I would just start from there. Start from, what the experts say is safe and unsafe, and why your tween or teen agrees or disagrees with that. They're honestly going to be the subject matter experts if they've already had some exposure to these places, and it gives them a chance to teach you. So I don't think that's a bad thing if your child's already had some exposure, hopefully more good than bad to these places. I think it puts you in a better position to have a stronger conversation with them.
Hey, Mr. Lane, I did have a comment from Facebook. One parent wanted me to say that please let the panel know that I really enjoyed them today, praying for them to continue to grow in their walk with God. So that was one of the comments.
Oh, thank you. That's a blessing. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, I am definitely putting for those of you who would love to be a part of those giveaways that we mentioned, I'm putting my that information in the chat. So if you want to send your name, your email address, and phone number to be put in that drawing for those prizes. Ms. Renee, do you want to mention a couple of your prizes that you're going to be giving?
Yes, I do. Okay, so I love this book. It's Parenting in a Tech World. I guess I should flip that. But yeah, Parenting in a Tech World. It was written as a handbook to, well, a lot of the questions you asked today. One of the chapters talks about, what do I do if am I starting too late in the game? My child's already been, exposed to these things, already been on the internet. So one of the things that we'll be giving away is Parenting in a Tech World. The other thing is a 1-year subscription to Bark for families. And the cool thing about this too is it's for every device in your home. So, if you have, 4 kids and each of them has 2 devices, it's for every child, every device in your home. So it'll be a 1-year subscription. And remember, Bark this is really designed as a way for kids to have as much freedom as possible in these digital spaces to learn and grow, but for parents to know have full peace of mind that if there is danger or something inappropriate, they're going to know immediately. So you'll get that and some instructions on how to start having those conversations as well.
All right. Well, guys, yes.
There was one question. One parent asked, how much is the subscription?
Yes, I did that. I apologize.
No worries. Yeah, the subscription annually is $99. So $99 a year, or $14 a month. There is Bark Junior too. Bark Junior is for, we recommend that for younger kids. It helps you manage screen time, filter the websites that your kids can visit, and also to keep up with kids, and they do local check-ins. So there's a Bark Junior for half that, $50 a year, and then there's Bark Premium, which also monitors accounts for the $99 a year.
Yes, excellent. Well, if there are not any other questions, Ms. Abrams, I just want to tell you thank you again for all of the information that you've given to us today. social media and just all the different things that our kids are exposed to, it's just so important to have this information, just to keep everyone safe, and for parents to know some other things too about staying safe online. So I just want to thank all of the parents. Thank you so much for allowing us to come on here. And we look forward to some other parent forums where we'll be talking about a lot of good topics this year. So I'm just going to turn it over to Minister Alondio. And again, thank you so much, Ms. Abrams, for everything.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, if you guys can type in the chat, thank you, or TY, whatever you want to do. Yeah, TY. So we appreciate you so much, Miss Abrams. We appreciate you, Miss Jelaine, for the partnership that you have with Miss Abrams and bringing it to us so that you can, so that we are more equipped in this world. And I heard Ms. Abrams mention the word vigilant. It's very important for us to be alert and for us to be vigilant. The word of God is the answer, and God has so many different tools and so many different ways to get answers to us. And one of those ways was through what Ms. Abrams did for us today. And so we want to bring these forums to you quarterly. So the next quarter, the next forum, look for more information about it. It's going to be a really, really good one as well. So we want to help support our parents, want to help make sure we have our young people, our kids, because things happen with our kids at a young age. I can remember when I was 3 getting bullied. And so stuff happens early on, and it can start affecting you later on too. So we just want to make sure that we build those systems for us guys. So hey, I'm gonna turn it back over to our host, Joshua. Yes, ma'am.
Before I go, just wanted to remind everyone that there will be a resource guide uploaded onto the website and Facebook this week. So please be checking this week. Also, there are other prizes. I just didn't want to say anything, but there are some other prizes as well that you will be able to get as well. So I'm really excited about the prizes.
Awesome. I'm glad you said that, Ms. Jelaine. We just want to make sure that everyone knows your email address too. And so it's J. Kirkpatrick at Girls Inc. Central -al.org. I put it in Facebook. Also, Ms. Jelaine also dropped it in the chat on Zoom. So email her, she'll put you in the drawing. If you get a text from her or you get some information from her, then you'll find out if you won or not. All right. So remember, there will be no Bible study. No small groups on Thursday night for our 6th through 12th grade. Enjoy your spring break. If you're on spring break this week, enjoy your time. Be safe. Talk to your folks. Talk to your parents. We love you guys. God bless you. Y'all have a great rest of the day. Bye.